Hi, I'm Shane Paisley, Chief Marketing Strategist here at DesignRev.
I'm Amy Whitehead, Senior Art Director at DesignRev.
DesignRev is a full-service strategic research and design firm that specializes in working with middle market and enterprise level clients from around the world. In our user experience lab here at DesignRev, our goal as designers is to make experiences as enjoyable as possible. And while my contributions to client projects focus primarily on business goals like increasing sales and engagement, our design team is always striving to develop exciting and previously undiscovered ways to improve interaction that users have with a digital marketing tool or product, and to make them more fun.
Our design process focuses on people and their experiences first. Fueled by data from our strategic department, we're always considering how what we're doing is going to shape the customer's relationship with our client's brand, and to use UI, UX design in a human-centric way to make the most powerful connection as possible. I'm excited to share with you today some of the design strategies and best practices I utilize while working within the Intuiface software.
We're going to kick things off with general trends within the UI, UX world. It's incredibly important as a designer to be aware of what's hot, even if you aren't going to use it. At the very least, you need to make your designs look relevant. 94% of people will not trust an outdated website or app, which means they won't trust your brand or product. There are specific visual trends picking up momentum that will be prevalent for some time. The first is layering or floating elements. Not everything has to fit in a box. When items overlap or appear to be floating on the page, it provides incredible visual interest. It allows you to show personality, and it evokes positive emotions in users. The second is dynamic visual experience, which really comes down to movement and animations. Especially when a user can trigger an animation, it connects them to the experience. Replace flat illustrations with a GIF. Add button movements to promote click-through, or even catch attention with a subtle element motion. One major element within all experiences is the copy. Elevating your copy will add character and help tell your story, connecting you with the user. Even the smallest amount of text can be altered from the standard phrasing and catch attention. From a copy on a button to the text after a form submission. People are getting used to moving through experiences in new ways than the standard button, or they're unable to due to disabilities. Modern UX design strives to make technology accessible to everyone. Trends are aiming for those who can't see, hear, or input commands with their hands. Gestures, swipes, and scrolls are the new norm, and voice search or even navigation is rapidly trending. To illustrate some of these trends, I'm going to switch gears to a zoo experience that we built here at Design Revolution. This was a simple Zoom app that was built in two very different ways. One with normal touch navigation, but the other one was strictly voice navigation. You will see layered and overlapping elements, interactions and slight movements with buttons and pop-ups. Videos and sound are really enhancing the experience and drawing users in.
Enter. Outback. Croc. Zoocam. Exit. Close. Back. Arctic. Seal. Zoocam. Exit. Close. back, home.
Within overall trends, designs have started shifting to two very different styles, one of which is clean and modern approach. So we'll dive into this one first. Why would you want to use this look? People are bombarded with so much information. Pop-ups, spam texts, emails, chats, calls. Give users a break. A stripped-down basic layout is very appealing to a consumer. It's easy to understand, and it's tasteful. So how do you get this look? Start with a simple and limited palette. If you're using gradients, make sure they're monotone. Dark mode is a huge trend that lends to very sleek design. Give your layouts lots of space and breathing room, and use subtle effects, soft shadows, highlights, and glows that have a high level of attention. Any illustration should be 3D models or almost surreal style. Here we will pull up another Design Revolution example of a selling tool we made for our client. Here you will see lots of white space, subtle gradients, and refined amounts of information on the page. You will also notice some of that small motion and animation that we talked about in the overall trends. Now, to dig into the opposing trend of imperfect design. Why would you want to use this look? It allows you to add personality and the human element to connect to users in a very meaningful way. It'll help you stand out from that super sleek digital world we just saw, and it'll make you feel authentic. What can you do to achieve this? Although you still want to maintain a color palette, this time it can be looser, with a broad range of colors or even odd combinations. Use asymmetrical layout to help drive that imperfect human quality. But the biggest element here is adding textures and illustrations, ones that make sense for your brand and will bring your company or product to life. Nowadays, people are experiencing less in person and more in the digital world. So having textures or high quality product photography will really help bridge that gap. We brought this trend to life in our beer experience. This sample will actually be available on the Intuiface marketplace, so be sure to check it out later. Here, we are using real textures and illustrative elements. We were trying to make the user feel like they are within the bar environment by imitating light glows and a neon logo, along with ambient sounds. And again, you'll see some of that animation and movement from the overall trends. Now that we covered the major trends and looks in the current market, let's switch gears. talk about designing and using the Intuiface software from a designer standpoint. I come from a mostly print world, but took interactive in college, which consisted of Flash, some coding in Dreamweaver, and programs using motion graphics. After college, my digital experience really only lived in website design. Intuiface was my first deep dive into layout and building of apps. Using the program, my first design admittedly was clunky, large, and not very intuitive. After time using the program though, understanding its capabilities and limitations, and quickly learning how best to design for this world, experiences were elevated exponentially. I'm going to share some of my insights I gained that will hopefully help you all build better experiences. We were tasked with creating a dynamic, interactive experience for an annual hands-on event for kids. At this event, they can get up close and personal with various kinds of trucks, ranging from fire trucks to dump trucks, play games, eat food, listen to live music. The experience we created is a build-your-own truck game, where kids could choose a background, pick a truck, add stickers, color on the image they created, which ultimately they could then save and share. So my first point, the main thing I learned is that the bigger picture and end goal of the experience drastically impacts the build and design. Some questions for you to ask yourself. Is the device large or small? Will the content ever change, or is there potential for the experience to grow and expand in the future? Is your target audience older, younger, the full gamut? What's the best way to navigate through the experience? And lastly, what is the environment going to be like? For our experience, we knew the device would be larger and the content wouldn't change. Our audience was primarily children with adult supervision, so the navigation had to be simple. Large buttons with images rather than text. And any copy would have to be short with a limited vocabulary. The environment was going to be very stimulating, so we knew that the experience had to hold attention and be immersive. The image you see here is actually part of my process. Whenever I start a project, I pull visual reference to help inspire my layout and design later. Number 2, process. This is what seems to work best for us, but the main takeaway here is to create a process that works for you and then follow it. The first step within this process is brainstorming. This is where we let our imaginations run wild. How can we push the envelope? What's exciting? For this experience, some ideas we had were a coloring book, cleaning and fixing up a broken truck, or building your own truck. Once you choose what your experience will be, then you should test any functionality. It's great to have an idea, but if you can't execute it, then you're starting from scratch. And it's way better to know that in the beginning than in the middle of a build. We knew that we wanted to use the drawing feature, but unfortunately, the tool in this program is too advanced for children. I did a basic test project using toggle buttons to mimic crayons. I ran into some issues, submitted a ticket to support, and ultimately, after the testing, we knew that we could execute our vision. Once we have an idea on how the experience will be built, then I will create basic wireframes and start to lay out the scenes in a design program. Here is where I work out the flow and navigation, look and feel, cohesiveness of elements, and can really bring the idea to life for our clients. Next, gather all of your elements and export for use. I gather every element I am using to triple check that it all feels consistent. Here's a page of some workup along with the final elements. So what did this mean? I built the background elements larger, but then actually saved the thumbnails at a smaller size. I also had to ensure that all the backgrounds were the same size and that the road fell at the same height. Same for the trucks. They had to be the exact same size, and all the tires had to fall in the same area. So when I brought all these elements into Composer, they aligned properly. Now it's finally time to build in Composer. Even though I had about 9 artboards in my initial layouts, I was able to build this in 4 scenes, with one scene doing the heavy lifting. I made mention about knowing the limitations and strengths of this program. One time we hit a barrier was with the sticker asset. We realized through testing that some people dragged the stickers while others tapped it. When tapped, though, the sticker appeared in an odd spot. Originally, the group was set to an asset grid, but we actually had to change it to an asset flow, as that type of collection allows you to target the index. We were able to then set an X and Y coordinate for the sticker to appear in a better area. Adaptations had to be made to the initial design for ideal functionality. The final steps are about making your experience more polished and connecting to users. Animations added to elements really draw attention and can help users navigate through the experience. The timeline feature in this program is a great tool. You can really fine-tune the movements and bring things to life. And of course, test it and then test it again, because now is the time to work out any leftover bugs or issues. Now, on to number 3. Another point to consider is whether you should build elements in Composer or a design program. Usually, you'll have a combination of the two, but it's important to decide early on. Advantages of Composer is the time and space saved, the ability to replicate and make changes directly in the program, and then utilizing variable text in buttons and graphics. Advantages of a design program is the precision with your look, the creation of more complex elements, and the font accuracy and sizing across multiple devices. For this experience, I wanted to have complete control over the design, which I know is a very designer thing to say, but many of the elements had curvy edges or more complicated shapes that did not allow me to create anything in Composer. Number 4, filtering. This is such a valuable tool within this program, but you need to consider whether it makes sense for your build. And again, you must have the foresight for the project. It may not use filtering now, but may in the future, and you can adjust your build slightly to allow for this growth. In our case, filtering saved a ton of time, and it simplified the amount of elements in the scene structure. I only had to create one background, one truck element, with one thumbnail for each. If you do utilize filtering, then you also must decide what lives in the library and what will be in Excel or an Airtable. For us, the buttons, crayons, headlines, and shape elements lived in the library, while the thumbnails and background images lived in the Excel sheet. The final point, number 5, is testing. But I'm not making the point of just testing. You all know to do that. It's testing on different personality and brain types. Left brain or analytical types will interact with experiences much differently than right-handed or creative people. Another thing to consider is the difference in how a younger user will interact with elements versus an older user. With our experience, we had the graphic designers use it, we had the head of strategy play with it, as well as our accountant. After the adults went through testing, we then sent it home with everyone so that their kids could test it. Even there, we ranged from 4 to 10-year-olds, but we gathered amazing insights on how users were touching elements, where some people got confused or even hung up. Through these learnings, we streamlined and adjusted to accommodate as many users as possible. That wraps up the video presentation, and in a moment, you will see me live to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you're able to take something away from the trends and insights I've shared.